Oi, love when a paper comes out that is in this series. Today I have for you large scale group brainstorming using Conversational Swarm Intelligence, CSI, versus traditional chat. For those of you who have watched for quite a while, you know that I love this whole concept of CSI and these authors and what they're doing, and that I have a prediction as to what's going to happen in the future in terms of what this technology will lead to that I'm excited to to tell you about today as well. It's the study itself is kind of not that much in here, but we're gonna go into the whole like what is CSI and what I think can slash should slash will happen in the future regarding CSI. Very exciting stuff. I really think it's a big part of the future that's more important than AGI and all this general tech bro hype and everything. I think this is more the way. This is along the lines of what I think is actually gonna matter long term. So yeah, let's get to it. Disclaimer. Before we start, remember to like, subscribe, comment, share, all the YouTube things. Join the Discord server, follow on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, support me either through Patreon or YouTube. For as low as $1 per month, you can get early access to my videos, or for a one-time payment, hit my Venmo. And if you'd like to borrow my brain for an hour or two, book a consultation call. All links are over on my Linktree. Let's get started. First up, some background. So, this whole idea is inspired by swarms in biology, whereby large numbers of animals can actually make intelligent group decisions very, very quickly without having some central control command that is just all the information is propagating in an intelligent manner. And it's also like a decentralized kind of local manner, right? The idea here, this is an example, is a swarm of fish trying to avoid predators, right? Is no individual fish knows where every single one of these, I think they're seals, yeah, I think they're seals. No individual fish knows where every one of these seals is coming from at a given time, but there are multiple seals. And then the way that the actual school of fish directs is that fish that are near a seal obviously swim into the school and away from the seal, and that the direction of the fish next to you indicates to you where you should go. You kind of take all of the fish above, below, to the left and right in front of you, and you kind of, I guess, average all the directions they're going in and try and move accordingly. And what you end up with is that the swarm in total moves in a direction that is simultaneously away from all three threats, all three seals at the same time, right? So they have local information communication just in terms of like you're literally looking to your left and right and seeing is the fish on my right like coming in closer towards me, is the fish on my left heading further away from me kind of thing. Local communication that ends up with very intelligent and purpose driven large scale group decisions and is implemented very, very quickly, right? So, how does this transfer to implementation in terms of humans and what we can potentially do? Here is a diagram for conversational swarm intelligence. The idea being that our usual structures for communication are very inefficient at a large scale. So whenever you have, for example, the easy example is like a big group chat. Think of like a ginormous group me or WhatsApp conversation with like 100 plus people or something. What you end up with is a very small number of people end up being the loud talkers. Most people never say anything. And this can be okay if your group has a is actually like the goals of it are conducive to a single or a few people planning what's going to happen. Sometimes this can be okay, but a lot of the time it's pretty inefficient. Whenever you have a situation where you want individuals to all contribute, where any given person might have some important information the group should know, in these big regular group chats that we usually use, people end up not speaking up, most of them, anyways. And then a few loud mouths that may not even have useful information overpower the conversation and therefore overpower the decision making, right? This is like, think of like Twitter or something where everyone sees Kim K and Elon's tweets, and nobody sees yours and mine. And don't get me wrong, I do think that like Kim K and Elon probably on average have more important information for the rest of the world to know than any given random person, but it is not true that they have more important information than the 99% of people who are not talking, right? At any given time, any random person might have important, interesting, funny, crucial information that should be shared with everybody, but they don't have a platform with actually share it on, right? So even if they have useful info, it will not get spread because no one listens to the random person, right? And so what this method does instead is it says, okay, we have our big, large cohort or huge group, right? Let's say 100 people. We split them up into separate little local group chats of, for example, if it's 100 people in total, then we do 20 different group chats, each with 5 people in it. And then at that level of a 5 person, maybe like 3 to 10 person group chat, it's a lot easier to communicate, and it's the odds are that people actually speak up and say what's on their mind is much higher when you have that more intimate format, right? And that's all well and good, but how do you get information to share across people? Well, you put a little LLM ChatGPT agent in every single little group chat room, and then you have that LLM periodically summarize the information in this local group chat and send it to other group chats. Now, not all other group chats, because if you had to receive summaries of every single other group chat, that would get overwhelming and it would like overpower the conversation of your own conversation, right? But just choose 2 different group chats, right? See these orange lines connecting all these little mini group chats. In here, we have your little LLM is sending out a summary of your conversation, let's say every hour, every day or something, to 2 other group chats, and that you are receiving every hour, every day, or whatever it is, or week or something. You are receiving the summaries, the action points, the important information, the ideas, the critiques from only 2 other group chats, right? And then over a couple time periods, over a couple days, a couple iterations of these summaries, propagating these summaries, action points, bullet points propagating, what happens is, oh, when our group chat, like all 5 people, receives a summary, then maybe if there's useful information in there, then we get to like talk about, oh, person in another group had a good idea, let's discuss that idea, or that person in another group, whatever it is, um, and that might influence our conversation, right? And then as our conversation has been influenced, then a summary of that gets out the next day, right? And so over time, we do receive info from other groups, and they receive info from us. And not only that, but let's say, oh, we're only communicating with the 2 groups we send summaries to. Well, actually, the summary that gets sent from my group to the 2 other groups, those 2 groups aren't just communicating with us, they're also doing with other groups as well, right? And so you can have this kind of hopping effect where you go from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to where eventually information can and will, if it is interesting enough that it sparks conversation, can and will propagate to every single other tiny group chat in the system relatively quickly, right? All the while going through filters of small groups of people have to decide this is interesting, important, whatever it is, the idea you had in your group chat is interesting, important, worth talking about, worth debating, right? And now there's a series of these studies that all reintroduce the concept and then test this whole mechanism in some context of like, oh, does it help increase communication by some metric? This study tested creativity, creative problem solving, where they have a creativity task and they said, all right, every group, or there's cohorts. I think it was 75 people in this study, 2 sets. So, but like ignore it, whatever. Basically, 75 people had to solve a creativity problem solving task that was like, oh, we are a company, a traffic company or something, a construction company that has a bunch of traffic cones, like way too many, like a surplus of supply. Can you think of alternative ways to use traffic cones, like creative alternative ways to use traffic cones that we've not used before and that will allow us to sell off this surplus of traffic cones? And there were other questions too and things, but basically a creative problem solving task. And then at the end of the task, they have participants either participates in a CSI in a swarm group or participates in a traditional chat room, right? And they have participants at the end of their task rate, do you feel like you were more creative overall? Do you feel more productive? Did you feel more heard? Like were your ideas heard well? Did it feel like you were collaborating well? Did you feel like you surfaced better answers? Do you feel more invested in the actual answers? Do you feel more partial ownership in what actually the group decided on? All this stuff. And then, as you'd expect, yes, good results, significantly improved across all of those self reporting metrics of people liked this conversational swarm chat room a lot more than they liked standard chat rooms. This is just like a personal, like, how did they like it kind of thing. I believe other studies measured like was like some external measure performance as well, and that's all cool. Now, that gets out of the way this study. Now let me just go into my rants about how much I love this stuff and my ideas to expand upon it and how I think it's going to be the communication method of the future. So, first thing is that I would love it if companies replaced a large part of what middle management does with this system. Right now, I think it's the case anyways, that middle management at a lot of companies and like most of the time, they have a couple jobs. One of their main jobs is to propagate information where it needs to go. That's like a primary purpose. Other purposes like I guess hiring and firing and making decisions kind of thing, all this stuff, right? But a lot of the time you have scenarios where the middle management is actually not well equipped even for the decision making part of the job, right? Where you've got a bunch of programmers who understand the actual technicalities of what's happening, and they're being managed by a bunch of MBAs, right? And those MBAs, like, they don't know what's happening, but they still have to like communicate across dozens of programmers and make a decision as to what should be done next, kind of thing, right? What if instead the information propagated with one of these conversational swarms, and then the group could come to a consensus, a conclusion based off of these swarms, right? You're already having conversations in Slack or whatever it is. Why not have it in an app that does this kind of system? You could even have like, oh, there is a tiny group for the small team of engineers and a group for the team of salespeople and a group for the team of marketers and a group for the team of HR people, right? And you could have all of these different sub parts of your company or of your organization. Like maybe you have like a club or something, or a charity, a nonprofit, or even just like a local community HOA or something. You could have these little subsets communicate with each other through this mechanism and hopefully come to what I think would be better solutions through this method, right? So I envision the first version of this being something like a competitor for Slack and Discord and GroupMe WhatsApp. Basically, it'd be the first version of this. But even then, I would start scaling it up to something that what did I used to call it? I believe I used to call it meta conversational swarm intelligence or hierarchical CSI or something. But basically, the idea being if we have our little groups, right, and that those groups interact in a swarm, what if we actually had multiple of these swarms? Maybe like, oh, they are different departments within a company or just different companies, period. They are so like a hierarchical structure where we can say, all right, well, if we have these chatbots moving through summaries and everything of these smaller human groups, what if we have the chatbots themselves engage in conversations with each other and then just higher level aggregate swarm those groups of conversations? And then you can see where this is going, I'm sure. Just keep going up and up, higher and higher levels, right? Now, I imagine this being super interesting in terms of getting communication to propagate across large systems. Now, to be fair, there is a degree of like compression happening, of like there's only so much can be said that highest level and you're losing little details kind of thing. So the next part that I would like to add to this whole framework is that in their implementation, they only have one person in one little group chat group, right, per swarm. What I would do is I would say, actually, no, like just like the same way how at your job you're probably in multiple different Slack groups. Maybe one of them is like one project being worked on by a few people. One of them has mostly different, maybe some overlapping employees and about a different project kind of thing, or even just different like Slack group chats as you already have that all have the exact same employees in them, but are about different projects, right? I would add in a part of the structure that says, actually, you can add and join arbitrary numbers of group chats and things such that we end up with a system where it's very flexible and some kind of network manager type person, or even the models themselves maybe eventually um, dictate what is the structure of this hierarchy, which groups get swarmed first, and then which groups go up higher levels kind of thing, which ones are related, which ones are not. So groups that have more to do with each other, like for example, the researchers and the engineers have more to do with each other than they have to do with the salespeople and the marketers, who the salespeople and the marketers have more to do with each other than they have with the researchers, right? You could like start thinking about how do you want to design this structure to facilitate faster communication between the groups that have to communicate more often and more frequently, and slower between those groups that are more separate in actual function, right? And so what I'd love to see is just, like I said, a competitor with Slack, Discord, etc., that is along these lines. I think it could be, if utilized well and if made easy enough to use, and if using a sufficiently good model, really, really interesting, right? The next little feature that I would add would be in group fine tuning, meaning every iteration, right? A summary or whatever you call it, bullet points, action items, gets sent out from your little group chat to some other little group chats, right? I would probably have it, at least in certain scenarios, such that before that summary is sent out, a little message is pinged in your own group chat saying, this is what the ChatGPT language model agent is about to send out. Do you have any changes for it? So you can go in and edit. You say like, oh, it missed this little part, or I want to elaborate on this. Now you can send it out, kind of thing. And anybody in your little group chat can do so. And over time, through this corrective data, it learns what you want in terms of what you information should be actually be shared, and to which group even. Like maybe you have one summary being sent to the engineers and one to the salespeople. Maybe you want specific individualized summaries, like, and styles of summary and styles of action bullet points to go to those two different groups. There's different things they actually care about, right? So this can be customized in like a lot of ways. Now, I think I've rambled enough into why I think this is interesting. For me, I see this as like the future of democracy, effectively. I think if we get this right and if we implement it correctly, this could be really used to remove middle management from companies, and even upper management as well. Like really upper management as well, honestly. This could be used to replace voting. I think traditional voting has shown its flaws in just like the pure who gets 51% and everything. If like imagine a system like this hierarchy and these all these whatever. Imagine you're like just in group chats with your friends and family, or like other people also in your political party or whatever it is, like some kind of strange hierarchy, to where like instead of having representative democracy where representatives get elected into office and they just do whatever they want for the next 4 years, and they like get paid by corporations or whatever to do messed up stuff. What if like all of our laws were determined by this huge swarm like conversation? We could abandon representative democracy and implement a kind of decentralized, conversational based, direct ish democracy. Would be super interesting, I think. There's a bunch of problems with that, like encrypting it and keeping it safe and putting AIs in charge. Obviously, you do like a final check with humans, of course, and all this stuff. But I think it'd be very interesting to see what kind of conclusions the human race could get to if we were making decisions in this manner rather than electing people that get paid under the counter or whatever the hell stuff, right? I've made videos in the past about this that are on the lines of like, who wants to help me with this idea? And I just frankly don't think it's quite at the time to be making an app like immediately. If you want to do it, go ahead, let me know. I'm sharing an idea out in the open, I guess. If you want to help me do it, also let me know. I have a lot more that could be elaborated on with this. Personally, I think that these researchers who are messing with research right now, I've perused their website and they have a couple products that seem to me like just not on target. At least that's not what I just described, anyways. Very much like like very small solutions for specific tasks in businesses type thing, or stuff like, oh, I think they have a way to like use this swarm method to get better predictions for fantasy football, I think, and they sell those predictions or something like that. Like a bunch of just lame-ish use cases, and I think they don't understand the potential they have, or they do and they haven't started it yet and they're working on it. They don't understand the potential they have in terms of a long-term, large-scale social media app style project that could be going here. I'm excited to see that in the future. I think I'll actually email them this video afterwards. They might be interested in looking at it. But yeah, I think it's about all I wanted to say for now. I think this is the future. I hope you're somewhat inspired and interested in the idea. But yeah, end of video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell, all the YouTube things. Join the Discord server, follow on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, and consider supporting me monthly either through Patreon or by hitting that YouTube join button down below. For as low as $1 per month, you can get early access to my videos. Or if you're a one-time payment kind of person, hit up my Venmo. And if you want to borrow my brain for a bit, consider booking a paid consultation video call. All of those links are over in my link tree. And yeah, end of video.